John chapter 2. On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied. "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and brothers and his disciples. There they stayed for a few days. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts, he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others sitting at tables exchanging money. So he made a whip out of cords and drove all from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold doves, he said, "Get these out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a market." His disciples remembered that it is written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." The Jews then responded to him, "What sign can you show us to prove your authority to do all this?" Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple and I will raise it again in 3 days." They replied, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you are going to raise it in 3 days?" But the temple he had spoken of was his body. After he was raised from the dead, his disciples recalled what he had said. Then they believed the scripture and the words that Jesus had spoken. Now, while he was in Jerusalem at the Passover festival, many people saw the signs he was performing and believed in his name. But Jesus would not entrust himself to them, for he knew all people. He did not need any testimony about mankind, for he knew what was in each person.
Thanks, Belinda. I don't know if you frequent the local Facebook page, Katoomba Locals or others similar to that, but if you ever do and you just feel like causing trouble or getting a response, you know what you talk about? You get on there and you hop on there and say something like, "Why are all the buildings in Katoomba run down or derelict?" or something like that. And then people will comment for hours about the state and the woes of our main street. You know, I quite like a main street. But all you do is you do that, people will kind of, you talk to someone on the street, you can bring this up, you can talk for half an hour if you want to. And they go, "Oh, the Paragon across the road, what used to be amazing. The Savoy up the road that way, even the Eldon behind us, good names in the old days." And you talk about it, and opinions will flow, won't they? Remember when you hear about when these places were functioning and opening, the glory days. You go, "Well, why doesn't someone renovate them? Why doesn't someone fix them up, bring them back to their former glory so we can enjoy them?" And often you find this is all too hard, right? Dodgy landlords, expensive termite damage, asbestos upon asbestos. Heritage restrictions, money, money, money. And so these places continue to fall into decay, and you can keep talking about it. Now, I don't say about this with judgment. I think, if it wasn't for the actions of a few people 20 years ago, this building could be another one on that list. You know, the broken down church, St Hilda's, an empty eyesore crying out for renovation. Thankfully, we're not there. But people often talk about the good old days. Oh, remember when Minter Magic was good, when this shop was there, that shop was there. We want them to come back. We want renovation, we want restoration. Now, I also don't want development, so it's a bit of a, anyway, let's not go into that in our town. But people want things to be fixed up. Now, you might be a renovator, you might have been involved in renovations, maybe you've taken a house and fixed it up, maybe you've tried and wished you hadn't. Some people among us might be the meticulous, take it all down to studs and then build it back with all the proper wiring. Others might be, let's wallpaper over the cracks and paint over the mold, that kind of thing. Different approaches, I'm sure. But some of us just prefer to watch it on TV, the renovation rescue things, grand designs, and so on. But sometimes we have a desire for renovation, we have a desire for these things to be new, whether it's our place or our town or the things around us. But sometimes the desires aren't about those kind of things. We actually want renovation a bit more personally. We look at our lives and go, I wish my life was different. I wish I could change. I wish this wasn't how it is. Maybe we've tried renovations in our lives that have gone well or gone badly. Sometimes we want physical renovation, and to some extent we can achieve it, eat well, exercise, but there's a limit, right? I was talking to Philip the other day. He says he was suffering from TMB, which means, Philip? Too many birthdays. Suffering from TMB, too many birthdays. Even my doctor the other day, I was there with my daughter, and the doctor leans down to my daughter and says to her, when she's 8, she says, you should, when you grow up, become a chemist and invent this pill, which means that all this aging stuff doesn't happen. And I can, not worry about that. And please do it soon so that she could have, get it. And you think, it's a bit of a worry when your doctor is putting their faith in an 8-year-old to solve all the problems. But you get it. We want renovation. We want renewal. We don't want decay. We want physical, personal, spiritual renovation and renewal. We want it for ourselves. We want it for those we love. We want it for our town. We want it for our world. It's a bit of a mess, you may have noticed. Who and how can we get this renovation? Who can bring it? Last week we've began our journey through the book of John. This is Jesus' friend John, who's writing an account of Jesus' life. And in chapter 1 last week, we saw that Jesus really wants us to see Jesus. His big idea, he wants us to see Jesus, the things he did, and he hopes that as we see him, we'll believe in him, and that will give us life to the full. In chapter 1, it says that Jesus is life and light and hope. He says unbelievable things about Jesus. Things like Jesus is actually God come in the flesh. That's unbelievable. He says things like Jesus comes that our relationship with God can be restored, not just kind of, master and subject, but as sons and daughters with the Father. Unbelievable. Unbelievable, particularly to his early Jewish audience, that when Jesus came, he's going to do bigger and better and more significant things even than their beloved history, than the stories, than the law. He claims that all that was coming towards this point, this moment. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable claims. And because it's so unbelievable, John says, I've got to convince you, so I'm going to get my witnesses, I'm going to get the eyewitnesses, I'm going to assemble their stories, so that they can tell you their stories, we can tell you what happened and what Jesus said, and so you can witness, you can see, you might believe, and you can have life. That was the kind of the prologue last week, and he gathers his first disciples who kind of take steps of seeing and believing. And in John chapter 2, we see this beginning of Jesus' ministry, and it shows more. It's the signs of who he is and what he came to do as we start to build up this picture. And I want you to think as we go through, because I might ask you towards the end, what do you see when you see Jesus? How do you respond? What do you see of Jesus' heart as we see these stories unfold? Come and see will be our continual call through this book. Now, we had these two stories read for us, and I don't know about you, but in Sunday school they were always very discreet for me. I think I remember the story of a wedding at Cana, and they'd do a little demonstration of turning water into wine, very kind of tricky. And then, it's all food colouring, spoiler. But then in the Sunday school, not reality, Jesus did it properly. Just want to clear that up. But so the story over there, that's the Sunday school illustration, water and wine, and then a different week would do the cleaning of the temple, where he'd come in and kick everyone out. So I looked at them separately. I want to look at them together today, because I reckon John's put them together on purpose. He's a great curator and editor of these stories. Most of the Gospels don't talk about the wedding, and they put the temple clearing elsewhere. So John's put them together for a reason. So we'll kind of compare and contrast a little bit. There's a few things different about the stories. Then we'll look at what's the same. I mean, the wedding story, middle of nowhere, small town called Cana. Temple, middle of the city, middle of life, very in the centre. The miracle with the wine happens out of sight. Very few people see what happens. Temple clearing, very public. The wedding sign is a supernatural kind of act. Something amazing happens. Temple clearing, less supernatural, more kind of physical. In the wedding, Jesus doesn't really explain what he's doing. In the temple, there's a bit more of an explanation. So they're quite different events, but I think they both communicate something to those who are watching them and also to those who are reading John's account. And as we look at it, just like last week, when you see a sign of Jesus, you've got a choice. You believe or disbelieve. You receive or you reject. And that's kind of one similarity in these stories, is as they finish, people see and believe. They see and believe. After the first sign, what Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Similarly, end of the temple scene, as Jesus continues to show more signs, many people saw the signs he was performing and believed in his name. Okay, one similarity, people see and people believe. What else do we see? I think in both signs, what we see is Jesus the renovator. We see a mission of Jesus renovating something, restoring something, bringing it back to life. The master renovator coming into a derelict building and not just actually bringing it back to how it was, but taking it to what it should have always been, even better. Jesus comes to renovate. And I guess the first target of his renovation, the first layer of that we see in these stories, is the broken religious structures, the broken faith, the broken, like the bankruptcy of life and worship in those times. Jesus has said, or we've seen through John, that a better thing is coming. He said, the law came through Moses, grace and truth comes through Jesus. Grace in place of grace already given. We're kind of seeing what it points towards. Jesus coming in to renovate their broken religiosity. And I think that's kind of one level. We look at how he renovates that, but we've got to take it a step further and see him as the one who can renovate even us, the one who brings renovation to all people, who brings life from death, who opens the way to God, who flips the tables and flips the scripts of our lives and gives us, even us, a fresh start in all our dilapidated brokenness. Jesus, the renovator. Let's see him in action in this first story. So, he's at a wedding. We don't know whose it is. It might be family friends. I think Jesus is there as a family friend rather than local celebrity at that stage. Why? Well, his mum knows what's going on behind the scenes, so there might be family connections. She might be involved in helping out some way. It's in Cana, a little town, and it's in the middle of a multi-day wedding celebration. The unthinkable has happened. No, not the cake falling over or a 4-year-old taking a knife to the cake as we heard before. Not an awkward speech or whatever it might be. The unthinkable has happened. The wine has run out. And a multi-day celebration, this is pretty crucial. We're out of drinks. No one knows about it yet. I mean, the wedding party don't know, the bride and groom don't know. Even the master of the banquet, whether he's the MC or the maitre d' or whatever his role is, doesn't know it yet, but Jesus' mum knows. Maybe she's been helping in the kitchen. She hears about it. Big news, big problem. She probably breaks protocol by going to the men's gathering. I'm sure they were divided at that point. And she calls Jesus to her. "Why do you involve me?" he asks. "My time has not yet come." She doesn't reply to him, says to the servants, "Just do what he tells you to do." It's fascinating, isn't it? I don't know if it's fair to see Jesus rolling his eyes. "Mom, what are you doing?" That probably didn't happen. But it's a fascinating interaction which leaves us with more questions than answers. Why does Mary tell Jesus? What does she think he can do? It's just a resourceful, helpful guy. Does she have an inkling of the supernatural possibilities? I don't know. He says, "My time hasn't yet come," and just gives us a clue, thinking, all right, well, maybe there is a time coming. What does that mean? An expectation for the future. What does it mean? He doesn't want to do this in public, so he does act, and he acts staying out of the spotlight. He doesn't reveal himself, but does honour his mum in this situation as well, honours his mother's request. So not many people see what happens next, just the servants, his close friends, presumably Mary as well. Jesus looks around and tells the servants, "See those ceremonial washing jars over there? Fill them to the brim with water." 6 jars, maybe 80, 100 litres each, enormous things, lots of water. They fill them up, he says, "Draw out some of this water and give it to the master of the banquet." Now, we don't get to see the faces of the servants as they do this strange thing. Fill it up, sure, that's reasonable. Pull it out, give it to the master? What do you mean? Obviously they notice that it's turned into wine. We don't get to see even the astonishment of the master's face as he goes, "Hang on, this wine, where did it come from? It's really, really good." Usually the best stuff comes out first, and then when no one can tell the difference, you give them the cheap stuff. But you've saved the best till now. And so that's what happens all behind the scenes, but the disciples see it. They see this his glory, his power, and they believe. They kind of take this step of understanding of who Jesus is and what he does. Now that's kind of what happens on the surface, what even those few people see, but I kind of wonder if Jesus is making a deeper point. I'm sure John's making a deeper point as he shows us this story in this way. And I think there's some imagery going on here. Think about wine. Wine in the Old Testament, a symbol of kind of rejoicing and feasting and God's blessing on his people. So prosperity looks like, your land flowing with milk and honey and bread and wine. Grapes and everything is shown to be kind of the symbol of God's blessing and a fertile land. So it's a blessing image. And Jesus comes into this place where the wine has dried up. The wine is gone. The blessing is symbolically and really absent. Something is wrong in this wedding. It doesn't bode that well for the marriage. And that idea of marriage is also this kind of theme that comes through the scriptures. Often God's rebellious people are kind of shown to be the unfaithful bride. There's an expectation, there's a hope of looking towards the restoration of God and his people, and that looks like a wedding feast often. So Jesus walks into this broken wedding. It's symbolic maybe of this broken life, broken faith, broken worship of God's chosen people. This wedding needs renovation, as does kind of their life and their faith and everything. Jesus looks at these ceremonial stone jars. We're told that they're for kind of purification, for purification washing as per their custom. Now, they're not full, and I don't know if they've been used or if they've been neglected. I don't know. Either way, perhaps they've lost their usefulness in purification. But either way, Jesus takes this symbol of the old and makes it new. He orders them to be filled with water and draws out wine, draws out blessing. Now, as water becomes wine, yes, that's a miraculous thing. That's a miraculous thing. The party's back on. The wedding is saved. But notice what Jesus does to these jars, these ceremonial washing jars. By filling them with wine, he's made them useless for their original purpose, right? You can't do ceremonial washing in wine. And there's hundreds of litres. I don't know how long it's going to take to get through it all. How can you clean them out? Can they go back to being what they were before? Ceremonial washing jars. And in this act, Jesus says, this washing thing is in the past. It isn't working. It doesn't actually make you clean Only I can make you clean. And we track the image of wine throughout the stories of Jesus, and we later see Jesus in that Last Supper really strongly linking this wine of the Passover meal with his own blood poured out. His blood is the wine. His blood shed on the cross is what cleanses and what purifies, not in a ceremonial way, but in reality. No longer washed in water, but cleansed in Jesus' blood shed for us. Revelation, also written is John's account, shows this picture of the saints washing their robes white as snow in the blood of the Lamb. And so I guess as these washing jars are filled with water that becomes wine, we have this idea start to form for those who can see it, that this renovation is coming, this better thing is coming, this better cleansing is coming through the blood of Jesus. The law came through Moses, grace and truth come through Jesus. And he is the better thing that is to come. You see, he doesn't make wine that's just okay. He makes the best wine. He comes to bring grace upon grace, life to the full, the better wine, what it was meant to be, that brings life and hope and restoration. I'm sure John didn't notice this all then at the time. He's probably just stunned by the wine thing, right? But as he records his history, he wants us to see it. Jesus, the renovator, bringing life and joy and cleansing, doing away with a physical sign, bringing in a spiritual reality. And then the scene changes, doesn't it? So we go from the wedding, and straight away we have the next scene. And Jesus continues to do this restoration work. And as he does, he shows us what God is doing. Of course he is, because he is God in the flesh. He does what God does, the Word made flesh. What does God want to do here? Jesus walks into the outer temple courts, and he finds it chock full of merchants, full of people selling animals, people changing money, and he gets angry. Righteous, zealous anger, and he drives them out of there. Forms a cord, drives the animals out. He can't drive doves out, so he tells them to get out. And now the other Gospels, they have Jesus calling these merchants thieves. Maybe they're ripping people off. But that's not so much the focus here of what Jesus is angry about. He says, stop it, you're turning my Father's house into a market. The market being in the house of God is the problem here. Why? So, I don't think the problem is selling animals. I think it's reasonable. People got to get their sacrifices. They've travelled from a long way away. You've got to buy an animal. That's fine. Changing money is not the problem. They need particular coins for their temple offering or temple tax. Jesus, well, that's fine. Just don't do it here. I think it used to be outside. Why have you brought it inside? This words for temple courts doesn't mean like that kind of inner sanctuary, that kind of holy of holies sort of areas, or even the inner courts where the sacrifices happened. This is the outer courts. And as we kind of saw the temple being built ages before, this place has a purpose. This place is where the nations will gather. Those who aren't kind of ethnically part of the people, they've come from different faiths or different backgrounds, even they are welcome to come and worship this true God. But you can't do it. You can't do it if it's full of stalls. And the other Gospels have Jesus quoting Isaiah, who says, my house should be a house of prayer for all nations, but you're making it a den of robbers. And yet they're probably robbing them of their money through dishonest trading, but certainly robbing the nation's opportunity to access the one true God. You've turned it into a marketplace. You're keeping people out. You're keeping people away. There's a problem with that. Jesus drives them out. Enough's enough. That's not right. The system is broken, needs renovation. We need to fix it. Now, the authorities are naturally not too happy about this, and so they question Jesus. Why are you doing this? And as they question him, we see that his plan isn't just to fix it, take it back to how it was. His plan is to take it to what it should be, what it needs to be. Verse 18, the Jews responded to him, what sign can you do to show us, what sign can you show us to prove your authority to do all this? Who are you, to come in here to do this? Sure, you could be a prophet, but you need to prove it. It's a reasonable kind of thing to ask. Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple and I will raise it again in 3 days." They replied, "It's taken 46 years to build this temple and you're going to raise it in 3 days?" Again, a totally reasonable question to a baffling response. And again, we don't see how the kind of the story unfolds from here. We don't kind of have the to and fro in the conversation. John doesn't tell us, but what he does do is kind of take us behind the scenes and explain it. This is what Jesus really meant. We figured this out later, verse 21. But the temple he had spoken of was his body. After he was raised from the dead, his disciples recalled what he had said. They believed the scripture and the words Jesus had spoken. John isn't one to sort of hold the surprise to the end, is he? He's already told us Jesus is going to come back from the dead. We know that. He knows that we know that. He's explaining what's leading up to it. And as the story continues, people see what Jesus is doing. They see his signs. They believe as well. So as we look at these signs, look at Jesus here in these two stories, these two kind of portraits of him that we see. What do you see of Jesus? What do you see of his heart? What do you see that he values? I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going to say, tell someone next to you very briefly what you see, and then I'm going to ask a few people for response. Okay, you thought you didn't have to do any work, but you do. Take a moment. What do you see? If you don't want to talk, that's fine. Just quiet is okay. But what do you see of Jesus in these two pictures? What strikes you? You've got 20 seconds or so. Tell someone next to you. All right, the question is, what do you see of Jesus' heart? What do you see of Jesus? What strikes you here? Who's happy to tell me something that you see of Jesus in these stories? You can share the observation of your friend if you want to. If it was more wise than your own, that's also fine. Anyone? Yeah, Colin. You see his authority. Yeah. You can see him acting with authority. As a disruptor. Yeah. Disruptor. That's cool. What does he love? What does he care about? Yeah, cares about worshipping God and people having access to God. Fee said people. We see that kind of not just in the temple, but this little wedding. He cares about people there as well. Yeah. I see Jesus, he kind of hates hollow worship. He hates ritual. If you just go through the motions and buying the animals and it's or doing the ceremonial washing, hates empty ritual. He hates people having barriers between them and God. He hates them being in the way so that they can't access God. I mean, you see people using even religious things as a barrier to stop people from encountering God. Isn't that a terrible, terrible thing? He wants joy and good for his people. I think these stories kind of foreshadow, he knows that his body will be broken and then raised. He knows his blood will be spilt. We know that he wants such good for his people that it's going to cost him enormously, that they might have this joy and this better thing. So Jesus, this great renovator, is not kind of wallpapering over the cracks or just trying to fix it up or make it like it was before. This is kind of full, total restoration that brings a thing that's better than it was ever going to be, the thing it was meant to be. He's saved the best till last, like that wine. He's saved the best till last. Now, we kind of want renovation. We want renovation for ourselves. We want it for our world. And we look for renovation in all kinds of places. We look for things to fix us, to give us purpose and hope and meaning. I wonder what it is that you look to for your purpose and hope and meaning. What things we hope for that will make life better. What's that one thing that we go, if I only had this, and then the life would be as it should be. We do this in all kinds of ways. Our world does this in all kinds of ways, but in many ways it's broken. And we keep seeing how it's broken. We trust in money and then we don't have enough, or it fails us. And we trust in people and they let us down. We trust in systems and they end up being corrupt. Whatever it is, we trust in our health and it fails us. Our world's worship is broken. We end up worshipping what is broken and it breaks us as well. The song that I love, the singer reflects on his own journey and says that everything that I've tried to stay young only makes me old. things don't work the way we want them to. The things we look to for renovation don't work. I know for a number of us here, our story is that we've looked everywhere. We've tried everything else, and then we've tried Jesus. And in him we've found the one that truly satisfies, the one that has life and hope and meaning and purpose. I wonder where you are looking for your renovation. And if it's not Jesus, I wonder what it would look like if it was. What if you said to Jesus, look, I've tried everything else. It's your turn. What can you do with me and in me? We see Jesus, we see this idea of God being with his people. Do you believe that yet? I don't know. Maybe you need to see some more signs. You need to think about it a bit more. But if it was true, and he's with his people, and he see his heart, his love for his people, for you, his desire for our access to God, to be restored, his desire for us to have hope, not just now until we have too many birthdays, but into eternity. What do you see in this Jesus? What do you want to say to him? What do you want to ask him? I'm going to give you again just a moment of quietness in your own heart to respond to this Jesus that you see. And I'll pray just a moment or two.